Okay, welcome back, Small Axe community. This is your boy Neek. Today I'm hanging out with a really cool guest. I heard him on a few different podcasts. I really like his story. I think it's going to be inspirational for you as well as myself. And that's why I wanted to get him on today. And before we continue, I need to read a little bit about his bio just to kind of catch you up a little bit about him. And then we're going to jump him in this and get him rocking. So, my guest today, his name is Stewart Beal. Stewart is an aggressive serial entrepreneur who brings extensive management, marketing, and leadership abilities to any project. Mr. Beal has been actively involved in real estate construction, acquisition, development, and management since 1997. Mr. Beal founded Beal Properties LLC in 2002 at the age of 19 and has founded 20 other companies in the real estate and construction industries since then. Mr. Beal has personally done over 600 transactions and currently manages a portfolio of over 3,000 units. Mr. Beal, welcome to the show. Hey, Stewart, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm real excited. As I was saying before, I love your story. I love your background. And I kind of went high level on your bio. So maybe you can kind of give the listeners some more context about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, okay, great. So when I was a young person in middle school, and even younger, I got into reading, and I would read, basically I would read like a book a day. And in my early teens, I started getting interested in business, reading business magazines, business books. My father had a construction company, and he, subscribed to all the business magazines, and he would bring them home when they got a little old for the office, and I would, devour those.
Mhm.
And I just became really interested in reading at a young age, and then I started reading like entrepreneurial books, like How to Become an Entrepreneur, biographies of entrepreneurs, that sort of thing. And a lot of it was, a lot of that fire and hunger came from reading, those books. And I started a lawn care company when I was 13, just going door to door, knocking on the neighbor's door, saying, "Hey, can I mow your lawn for $20?" Probably $10 back then. And they really liked the fact that there was this hardworking kid in the neighborhood. So I got hired by like an unbelievable amount of people. And when I was 16, we formulated it into a real business, bank accounts, insurance, LLC type of thing. And when I was 19, we had over 400 customers in the city of Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's a pretty good city to do that type of business. A lot of very busy people that don't mow their own lawns. And so the customers were very sticky, too. I've been mowing these people's lawns for 6, 7 years by now. And that was able to attract my partner buying me out, because it was a real business with signed contracts, good customers. I sold that business, my share of the business, for $250,000, meaning the business at that time, we had an accountant help us evaluate it, and the accountant thought it was worth $500,000. So I sold my share for $250,000. I did it kind of like a land contract in real estate, where I got $50,000 down and then $1,438 a month for 10 years. And I used that money to make my first real estate investment when I was 19.
Oh my God. Stuart, that is freaking incredible, man. I love that story. Look, and I've heard it before, but I really, really love hearing that story. I kind of want to stick there for 1 second. I know that's not the main topic of our conversation today, but did you like buy, like scale up? Were you buying different like ride on mowers? Like, did you hire people to work under you? Like, how was it? Were you doing it all yourself with your partner?
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I've always worked like a very odd amount of hours, and people say like, "What's your recipe for success?" And I've got like a long list of them, but one of the main ones is, unfortunately and fortunately, I mean, I'd like to be able to do it in less hours, but an intensive amount of hours, like crazy intensive amount of. And then, obviously, we were in school, but we'd get out of school, we'd do landscaping projects and mow. And then when it got too dark to do that, we'd go door to door and stick a flyer in everybody's mailbox for our business, and then do that until bedtime. In the summer, we would do it 7 days a week. Um, I also did construction too, so I would work a construction job from 7 a.m. to 3:30. Get off, go mow lawns, go do landscaping projects. Again, when it got dark, you're putting flyers in again, and so that's really what led to a lot of the success in terms of scale. The key to being an entrepreneur is not to do it yourself. You always need at least 3, 4 guys on your landscaping crew or mowing crew with you. You're the guy there to keep it organized and show them what to do and work hard, but you definitely need to be able to charge those customers $30 an hour and pay those guys 15. That's how you make the real money, obviously. You make way more money doing that than you just charging the customer 30 and charging 30 for yourself. So instead of earning $30 an hour, I was earning 75 an hour because I was paying those guys, 15 or whatever. Yeah, so we scaled up with employees. Yeah, we had multiple trucks, lots of mowing equipment. It was a real operation. And the kind of the most proud thing I am of the whole thing today is that was almost exactly 20 years ago, and that business is still a very successful business. Run by the person who bought me out. So not only did it work out amazingly for me, it worked out even more amazingly for her. She's had her career, family, bought multiple houses, all on the back of that business too.
That is a phenomenal story, man. I love to hear that. And one more question on this. So you mentioned that you were reading, different magazines and things like that your father brought home, or you had access to. Did you have somebody like also kind of coaching you along the way, saying, "Hey, you need to get this person to sign contracts," or did you have a mentor or anything?
Yeah, okay. So I consider myself self-made, but I definitely need to put it out there that I came from a privileged background for sure. Number one, I grew up in a pretty good neighborhood in Burns Park, Ann Arbor, Michigan, where a lot of people wanted to give kids money to mow their lawn. I mean, if I had grown up in a different neighborhood, that would have been different. I probably would have done something pretty good, but maybe it wouldn't have been so quick. And then what I always joke with people is, if you want to be successful in business, have a mom that's a lawyer, because I was a lawyer. And obviously, she probably helped out tens of thousands of times with things small. And then once we got into real estate, she was actually our like corporate attorney for about 10 years before she retired. So yeah, that's my joke is, have your mom be a lawyer. So obviously, come from a privileged background, and I got a lot of help along the way from hundreds of people, but obviously my mom was a big one. And then my dad being in business, well, he's a contractor, right? So that's all he does is issue people contracts and have them sign them. And he was in the construction industry. I don't like the construction industry. I owned a construction company, which we could talk about. I owned a construction company for 10 years, but I don't like construction as much as lawn care or real estate because it's not recurring revenue. What I do now is all recurring revenue stuff. I don't want to ever do anything where a guy says, build me a house. Okay, you're done with that house. I'll talk to you again 10 years from now when I want to build another house. I want that recurring revenue. And that's why I like lawn care, is because you're mowing that lawn every week. And in real estate, of course, the tenants are paying the rent every month.
Beautiful. Yeah, very well put. Yeah, it's very transactional, the contracting business. Love it. But don't sell yourself short, man. You are a super, super hard worker, super smart guy. So that is definitely other people in the same position wouldn't have made it. So kudos,
Right.
man. All right, so let's talk now about real estate. So you're getting into real estate after you sold your portion of the business.
Yeah, okay, great. So I didn't know the difference between a residential deal and a commercial deal at that time. I met a man who had 12 properties in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And I thought, holy cow, if I could own 12 properties someday by the time I retire, that would be like the pinnacle of success. And he said he wanted to sell each property over time, and I just happened to pick a 5 unit. And the reason I picked the 5 unit was because the only property that had a vacant unit in it, and I needed a place to live coming out of where I was in college. So we bought the 5 unit, not knowing that it was like a commercial deal. I just, got it under contract, emailed it to a bunch of lenders. They explained, oh, this isn't a residential deal since it's 5 units and up. It's a commercial deal. So that was no problem. It took a lot of work to get a commercial bank to 19-year-old, no real estate experience, but to do the deal. But we eventually got that done, and we closed the property. About 75 days, a little longer than normal, but 75 days, and bought the commercial property, the 5 unit rental property. And of course, I say, hey, if I could own 12 properties, that would be amazing. That seems very quaint now, 600 real estate transactions later. But at that time, like, and I would say today to someone who says, I want to own 12 properties someday, I would say that is very ambitious goal. That's going to take a lot of hard work. So, I don't think it's too quaint, but it's a little bit.
Yeah, for where you are now. Great, man. Let's talk a little bit more about your after that. So you got this property in the contract. Did you love it right away, and were you like, I'm sold on this, I want to keep doing this, or was there challenges involved?
Yeah, no, it was horrible. Like all management is in the beginning, and maybe it always is. And we could talk about, why you shouldn't be your own property manager if you want to live a certain life. But yeah, so I bought the property. It's a 5 unit rental property, and 4 units were occupied. And I met the woman in apartment number one, and I asked her to pay her rent, and she said, "Well, I'll just pay you when I get back from vacation. I don't have the money to go on vacation and pay the rent, and I'm going on this vacation, so I'm not going to pay you." And I said, being a naive 19-year-old, I said, "Oh, I come from a place where people do what they say they're going to do." Growing up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, for the most part, when someone told me something, I could trust them. When a lawn mowing customer said they would pay me, they would. A friend said they'd do a favor, they would. So I came from that place. I didn't come from property management, obviously. So I just, trusted her. And a few days later, the resident number two said, "Hey, the resident in number one, her dog is barking like crazy." And I said, "No, that's not possible. You must be like misunderstanding where the sound's coming from, because she went on vacation. So there's no dog in her apartment, obviously." So a few more days went past, and the tenant said in number two, she said, "No, there's a dog going crazy in number one." And it was at a different entrance of the property, so I had to go to the front instead of I access the property from the back. So I go around the front, and I go to that door, and the door is just going like, bah, 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 bah. And I'm like, "Oh my god, there's a dog in there." And so I key into the apartment, and this person had gone on vacation, turned the water in the kitchen faucet on full blast so the dog could lap at it, and dumped a 50-pound bag of dog food on the floor. And so this apartment, very small apartment, a studio, was half dog food and half dog feces, all over, all over the place. So, I'm trying to call this lady and, email her. She's not responding. And when she gets back from vacation, I say, "What the heck?" And she says, "Yeah, I'm moving out. I'm not paying you." So that was my first like week of property management.
Oh God, sounds like a nightmare, man.
Yeah, and property management can be a nightmare. But I did, like other aspects of it, and I didn't mind that too much. And so it just kind of snowballed from there. I bought a property a year for the first 5 years. So you buy that property, then you buy another property, then you buy another property, and at that point, you're starting to build equity. You can start doing some cash out refinances, and it kind of snowballed from there, where we started buying a property every 6 months, a property every 3 months. Then we're buying a property every month. And then now, 20 years later, we buy 2 to 3 properties a month.
Wow. All right. So, what size do you target now, or do you do syndications? Are they JVs? Do you do it yourself?
Yeah, so since we own the property management company and we manage properties for other people of all sizes in 63 cities in the state of Michigan, that gives us comfort of buying a property of any size. I mean, we don't do single family, we don't do duplexes, but if I see a nice triplex across the street from a property I already manage and it's got a good price, I'll still take that down. But what we target now is mid-size apartment buildings that are too large for the small investor, but too small for the national player that's going to bid that up and pay more than you can. And so when I say mid-size, I'm talking 20 units to 100 units. And I told the guy that on Saturday, and he laughed. 100 units, mid-size? Are you nuts? That's huge. And I told him, well, actually, the largest property I ever bought was a 468 unit apartment complex. We bought that in 2018. So, there's a lot bigger properties than a 100 unit property. I mean, 468 might be mid-sized for some guys in New York.
Mhm.
But in Michigan, 20 to 100 is mid-size. On those smaller deals, those triplexes, we do JVs. We call them single asset entities. Let's say the deal requires 100,000 cash and a $300,000 loan. If you invest 50,000, you'll be a 50% owner in the deal. We'd become partners. Obviously, we'd hire, we being our company that we formed to buy the real estate, would hire Beal Properties, my property management company, to manage the property and give us about 99% authority to do, what we would do if we owned 100% of it. Um, and then on the mid-sized apartment buildings, those 20 to 100, we put those in real estate syndications. And right now we're doing a syndication called Beal Fund 2, where we're raising $10 million to buy about $35 million worth of real estate. And we just started the fund, and we have already purchased a 20 unit and have a couple of other things very close to getting into contract, and we're rolling. But that'll probably have about 500 apartments in it when it's done.
Amazing, man. There's a lot to unpack there. I love this. Now, so are you focusing specifically in the Michigan markets or anywhere else?
Yeah. Okay. Great. So right now, Beal Properties has a broker's license to manage only in the state of Michigan. So we only manage in the state of Michigan for other people. I have some investments in Toledo, Ohio, but we own them, so we can manage them. But we can't manage other people's properties. Um, and then I like to buy properties in our management footprint. That way, you can just send an email to the property manager. Hey, you're managing a new property starting tomorrow, as opposed to having to go out and hire a new property manager in a totally different area, find maintenance staff, that sort of thing. We try to intensify the footprint with what we're buying. With that said, I do invest in a partner of mine's real estate syndications, and I'm invested in about 3,000 units in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama, because I think in the future, no one's going to be able to live in the state of Florida due to climate change, and no one's going to want to live in the state of Michigan still because of snow. So they're going to move to North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama. That's a theory of mine anyway. And they're already pretty high growth areas that we're investing in. So that's why I'm investing in that. But I invest mostly in Michigan just because that's where I own the property management company.
Awesome. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that process of building the property management company. I guess did you start from that 5 unit? Was that the conception?
Yeah. Yeah. So the day I always knew I wanted to do the property management myself. So the day we bought that first property, that's when our property management company was born. I was the only employee. I did all the work myself. I'm somewhat skilled, so I did, all the cleaning, the trash outs, the painting, the super light maintenance. And then when I needed to do some heavier maintenance, I would find a guy on Craigslist. Craigslist was very active back then. And they would come work for me part time. But the third property I bought was actually a 30 unit. So at that point, now I need a maintenance guy, especially that property was pretty distressed. So I hired him a full-time maintenance guy. His name is Rich. He still works for me 17 years later. And then I have no interest in accounting at all. I can review accounting statements. I know what I'm talking about, but I don't like the hour by hour accounting. So my third hire was a bookkeeper. And this was getting into the foreclosure crisis, and bookkeepers were, you could hire a dozen bookkeepers tomorrow in the foreclosure crisis. Now, of course, it'd be nearly impossible to hire someone, but I was able to hire a very affordable bookkeeper very early on, and so that was the start of the property management company. I was the property manager. Here's Rich, the maintenance guy, and here's the bookkeeper. That's the property management company. And then, then when you start, buying more and more and more, then you need to add a second maintenance person. Now you need to add a leasing agent. Now you need to add an assistant property manager. Now you need a second property manager, and just kind of builds from there.
Oh, amazing, man. Stewart, I guess, do you have any wild stories that stand out over the past 20 years with property management?
Yeah. So one of my favorite stories is it happened in what's called the polar vortex. So 3 to 4 years ago, there was a huge cold front that came in, and it was way colder than it ever had been, and way colder than it ever will be in multiple parts of Lower Michigan and Toledo. It was -10 outside, but in these basements, we actually took measurements of -30. Okay, and so this stuff, boilers, hot water tanks, furnaces. This stuff is not made to work in -10, let alone -30. And it's only made to heat the air 50 degrees hotter than it is outside. So, like, if it's 30 outside and you got a good furnace, it's going to be cozy in your apartment. But if it's -10, even that thing working full time is still only going to be 50, 60 degrees. So it was a miserable month. But I remember one night our maintenance manager went on vacation, and we were getting so many maintenance calls. I had to just sit down like in a call center and just put the headset on and just take calls back to back from people calling about emergency maintenance, and then directing the maintenance guys. And I did that for like overnight. Like I did like a 24-hour shift of that. And at one point, a call came in at like 1 in the morning, and the guy said, "Stewart, my apartment above me is vacant, and the heat must not have been on or not working well, and the pipes froze, and now my ceiling's collapsed in my living room, and the water is flowing down." And I told him, in the city in which you live, I have 7 emergency maintenance people, and all 7 of them are already on emergency calls. So, as crazy as this sounds, I'm actually not going to come resolve that right now. You're just going to have to wait till the morning. And he said, "Okay, I understand. Like, yeah, I understand it's really bad out there." And then he called back 15 minutes later screaming, "Oh my God, you have to come right now. The apartment's on fire."
Oh my God.
In 15 minutes, we had a flood and a fire in the same apartment building uh, in the middle of the night. And the fire was because the someone kicked in the vacant apartment above him and lit a campfire to try to like survive the night,
Mm.
like in the middle of the floor. A homeless person or a friend of one of the other residents or something. So they set the building on fire, mistakenly, but still, then I had to go there.
Oh man, what a story, man! And are these? Do you typically focus on like C class, B class? What asset class do you look for?
Well, I like A, but C is a lot easier to buy. So I've done a lot. And the building that I describe, of course, in that story is Class C on a good day. Um, but what I like to do is buy C pluses and turn them into Bs, and buy B pluses and turn them into A minuses. By the time I'm done with them, the 468 unit apartment complex we bought for the area was Class A all the way, pool, luscious grounds, and when you're managing a 468 unit, the best part about that is you can have a really robust, well-paid staff, and afford it. Yeah, I've got experience on all types.
Awesome, man. Do you still own that 468 unit, or did you sell out of it?
Well, I have a very good and sad story at the same time about that property. We bought it in 2018 for 18 million, and we at the time it was about 80% occupied, so we couldn't get a Fannie Freddie loan, which needs to be 90 for 90, 90% occupied for 90 days before you get a Fannie or Freddie loan. So we got a bridge loan, a 2-year bridge loan. And that bridge loan expired in March 2020. And I assume we all still know what happened in March 2020. COVID came in real hot and heavy in Michigan. I live about 30 minutes from Detroit. And outside of New York, Detroit was the worst hit city in the country at that time. And the bridge lender came at us pretty aggressively. And, obviously Freddie's not loaning money in March 2020. Everything was kind of frozen there and, getting into April. So at the same time, one of my partners in that particular real estate syndication, he comes from a background of like trading stocks, and he comes from a place of everything's for sale at all times. I mean, if you're going to give me a bid of more than what I think this property's worth, then you can buy it. I don't care. It might go up in value in the future. If you're going to pay more than it's worth now, then you can buy it. So we got a very attractive offer of about 30 million, 12 million more than we paid for it. And it was COVID and the bridge loan was expiring. And so we did sell that property in, mid 2020. And the reason I say it's a good story, obviously it's a good story, 18 million sold for 30. And these are approximate numbers. Obviously I can share the exact numbers if someone wants to shoot me an email. I got a case study on it. That's a good story, obviously, but the bad story is everyone knows what's happened to multifamily since March 2020, and now that thing sold for 30. Probably we could sell it for 36, 37, 38 today. But timing is everything, and that took some chips off the table, took some winnings off the table, and we were able to shore up some things that weren't going as well. Obviously, COVID related stuff. So that's a big success story. I definitely wish I still owned that. And I will buy a 468 unit apartment complex again at some point in the next 5 years. That's a goal of mine.
Phenomenal, Stuart, and thank you for the transparency and the stories. This is literally one of the best conversations I feel like I've ever had. I'm just like excited, man. Thank you. And so circling back a little bit, so the fund that you mentioned, you're currently raising for a fund. I love that. I think that's an awesome idea. Do you find it difficult to for the mentality as an investor? Do you find it difficult for them to buy into a fund as opposed to a property that they can see today?
Yeah. Okay. Great. So what we do is we do blind pools, and we don't tell the investor what property they're going to invest in. They just need to trust us to invest in the property that is going to do well. On one hand, that's very difficult to do. Get a lot of no's. On the other hand, my partners and I have raised more than $130 million in the last 7 years, selling shares in our funds at $25,000 a clip. So, it's not one guy putting in 130, it's about 1,000 people that we were able to convince to invest with us. So on one hand, yes, I get exactly what you're saying. It's difficult going. And on the other hand, we did it about as successful as you ever could. I do get a lot of people who say, especially high net worth individuals, very high net worth individuals, people that could invest 10 million or 20 million. When I talk to them, they say, I only invest in single deals, because I want to know exactly what I'm investing in. So, it's challenging to do what we're doing, but I only do one or two or three things at a time. And so I can't do 4, 5, 6 things at a time. And so that's what I tell that investor that says, I don't want to invest in your fund today. I said, okay, I'll keep you on my list, and maybe I'll do something different, next year or the year after. And maybe that will be more appropriate for you.
Perfect. And how do you present those deals? Are these cold calls? Are they just calls with your investor database, or are they webinars, or how do you present these deals?
Yeah, everything. Yeah, everything. So, basically every person that I meet gets to hear about my real estate investment opportunities. Then I put them in a database. Then I do tons of social media. I had some posts last year go viral on LinkedIn, where I would check my LinkedIn messages, and like 1,000 people would message me overnight about real estate, and I would set up calls with them, and we would talk about that. And then also you get in where people start referring each other. So like a son invests, then his father invests, then his uncle invests, then his friend invests, and so you can, using your investor database, we use investnext.com. You can tie these people together so you can understand where they came from and how they're connected, and that sort of thing. So when you're talking to them, you can be reminded of the connections and things like that. And so it's kind of like sticky. I was in a room in Texas one time doing an investor presentation, and all 40 people in the room were of Indian descent, and they were all IT engineers that worked at one company, and they just all came, and quite a few of them invested, and so you just get these groups, these pockets, and every time you talk to an investor, you say, hey, if there's anyone else that you think might be interested, please reach out, or we'll reach out, so that's how we do it. And you have to be using lots of strategies at the same time. The only thing I'm guilty of is not spending enough time raising money. I own a property management company. I have 3 daughters. I've got multiple other business interests. I'm buying properties all the time. And when we raised the most money quickest, it was when we had excellent people on our team that all they did was raise the money. And because I sometimes at the end of the week realize, oh my God, I didn't spend any time this week on raising money. So I'm building that team and working towards that as I'm growing this new syndication business we got going.
Terrific. Man, this conversation has been seriously incredible, Stuart. I am positive that my listeners are going to love this. And I want to get them some form of contacting you. But before we do that, I'm going to transition to our final question. Let's imagine it was 100 years from now. You have great grandchildren and they want to write a book about you. What would you want them to title this book?
Well, so I did something really cool for, and we identified the folks who had lived with us the longest. So Mary in Ypsilanti, she had lived with us for 27 years, and 7 years before I even bought the property. So she lived there 7 years, and then I've owned it for 20. And then in Toledo, Ohio, we found a guy who had been there for 32 years. And what we did is we got one of those big fake checks and we presented them each with 1 year free rent. And oh my God, it was like amazing. They reacted like way even more than I thought they would do when I was planning this. It was like the greatest thing I've done in business. Rewarding a woman who's now retired on Social Security on a tight budget with a year free rent. So she was like, I'm going to get my grandkids some gifts for the holidays. I'm going to go on a vacation. I haven't gone on vacation for a while, so that was like amazing. So what I want to do for my 40 year anniversary, which will be 20 years from now, is I want to give people the single family houses that they've lived in, that they've rented for a long period of time. And so, the title of the book could be something like, 1,000 deals and the ones that we gave away or something like that. I just think that'd be a cool thing. Like, you rent a house from me for 30 years, you don't have a ton of generational wealth. And then, your landlord gives you the house.
This is incredible, man. I love stories like this, and congratulations on the 20 years. I mean, your story is phenomenal. Your personality, your vision, everything is on point, man. Kudos, you're the man.
Thank you. Well, we work hard, and I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff without. We have about 65 really hardworking staff members. Hundreds of clients, hundreds of investors. Thousands of tenants that support us, and so it's a team effort.
Love it, man. All right, so let's get the listeners some form of contact.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm very active on Facebook. I'm Stewart Beal on Facebook. You can send me a Facebook message. Very active on LinkedIn. You can send me a LinkedIn message. And then my email is sbeal, SBEAL, at gobeal, GOBEAL.com. And our property manager website is gobeal.com. And our syndication real estate fundraising website is bealcapital.com. So lots of ways to contact me, but email is certainly best. But a lot of people like the Facebook message and LinkedIn message, so that works too.
Excellent, Stuart. So it has been a true honor and pleasure talking with you today. I really learned a lot. I'm inspired by you, and I appreciate your stories and everything that you shared. So thank you so much.
Awesome. I had a great time. Thanks.